Hey, Preteen3 campers, welcome back. Today we're going to demonstrate how to properly cook marshmallow under these new circumstances around a campfire. We know that with a roaring fire like this, you got to keep your distance, make sure you stay safe. So we're always practicing the 6-foot distance, even when roasting marshmallows here at Camp Latolai. So what we have here is just simply all you need to do is take a handful of sticks and just simply tape them together so that they're a good distance apart. And then you can, the other person on the other side, keeping my distance, so everybody can see that we're keeping our distance. And the other person, after properly washing their hands and sanitizing their hands, they can put 2 marshmallows onto the end of that extended stick. All right, so here we go, Mr. Tim.
Keep your distance, just like we did when we started the fire. We were 6 feet apart. We're 6 feet away from the fire, and now we continue to be 6 feet away, and we're going to get some perfectly toasted marshmallows.
See, I like mine toasted. Don't burn it now.
Whoop.
It's all about distancing ourselves.
That didn't catch on fire, did it? If it catches
No,
on
I think
fire...
you're good. You're looking good. You're looking good. Beautiful.
Yeah? You think
Yeah,
you want to eat?
good.
You want me to feed you one? Or?
Oh yeah, let me see if I can. I don't want to like burn myself on the edge of that metal there, but let me see how this tastes. Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
All right, I'm going to get this one then.
Okay, go ahead. Come on, you can get it. Stretch. Well, while he's working on that, here's our next lesson from the book of Daniel. Our series is from the book of Daniel. Here's our next lesson. Take care, Preteen3 campers.
Been in a situation where you were asked to do something and you knew that it was wrong? I have. Those are hard situations to be in, aren't they? Now, what was your reaction? What did you do? We're going to look at some men today who are faced with that kind of situation where someone in authority over them said, this is what you're supposed to do, and yet they knew it was wrong. We're going to Daniel chapter 3 today. And in the previous chapters of Daniel, Daniel 1 especially, we see Daniel and his 3 friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, commonly known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Right? They were given new names whenever they were taken into captivity in Babylon. And so we have Daniel and his 3 friends in chapter 1 who said, we're not going to eat of the king's meat. We're not going to defile our bodies with something that's been offered to idols. That goes against God's law. They purposed in their heart, they made a promise, if you will, in their heart to God that they would not disobey him in that way. And today they're faced with another hard decision. King Nebuchadnezzar has set up a giant statue. It says in verse 1, Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its width was 6 cubits. Now a cubit is approximately 18 inches. So I know it's not time for school yet, so I'll do the math for you. This image was 90 feet tall. Now that's pretty big. I used to play basketball a little bit with my friends, and you know that rim that you had to shoot the ball into was about 10 feet off the ground. Now imagine that times 9. That is super stinking tall. So what was the reason for this ginormous statue? Perhaps it was to promote his own religious beliefs, whatever they were, or to mainly just exalt himself over all the nation. Nebuchadnezzar put this image up, and he says in verses 2 and 3 that it says that he gathered all of his leaders, his rulers, and his counselors together. He says, we're going to have a ceremony, a dedication ceremony for my image. And he says this. It says that I've hired all these musicians, the music's going to play, and at the time that the music plays, soft and sweet, and at the time that the music plays, you will bow down and worship my image. It's a pretty tall command right there. You can kind of hear into the conversation of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Wow, look at this ginormous image, and he wants us to do what? Has God not said that we're not to have any graven image before him? We're not to have any other gods before him? What do we do? And it's a very serious situation as they contemplate, what will we do? Will we serve the king and do this in obedience to the king while disobeying God? Or will we obey God and disobey the king? A tough decision, yes, but they chose to obey God. Obedience to God is always better. Obedience is better than sacrifice. They knew that the fiery furnace awaited them. They knew that they might not get out of this alive. But they also knew that God could deliver them from the fiery furnace. They trusted in God through this whole situation. Now you might say, well, come on, I mean, just one time, right? One time they could bow down. Who would notice among all those people there? God would. Who would notice among all those people there? They had purpose in their heart that they would obey God. They would not disobey Him, even in the slightest. They knew that they may not make it out of this alive, but they also knew that obedience to God is always better. You might think, well, what, just once wouldn't hurt, right? Just bow down and fit in. Who would know it? Well, obedience to God is always better. God would know. God knows the condition of our hearts. Dear listeners, sin is serious business. They knew that. It was sin that caused Adam and Eve to be separated from God in the garden. It was sin that Romans 5:12 tells us that because of that one sin, that just taking the one piece of fruit from the tree that God told them not to eat of, taking a bite like God told them not to, right? That sin caused death. That sin caused death and separation from God. And Romans 5:12 tells us that one sin ushered in death for all men who are born into this world. We're all born with that sin problem. And they knew that sin was serious. They knew that the punishment for this sin was serious. But they said we will follow God. We will follow after God, even if it means the fiery furnace. Daniel 3:7 says that the music played. And men bowed down, all except for three. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And then these Chaldeans came to the king and said, "Oh, king, the music," beautiful choice by the way, played, and there was these three. You remember those three Hebrew men? They did not bow. The king was furious. He said, "You heard the music playing, right? Well, I'm going to give you another chance. I'll give you another chance. And when the music plays, if you bow down and worship my image, that's good. That's good. I'll give you a second chance here. But if not, you will go to the fiery furnace. And it says, who is the God who will deliver you from my hand?" Kind of a bold statement for the king. He was challenging the Lord God. We read a little further and they say, "King, we're not trying to just deliberately make something up to cause you to be angry here. We chose to serve the Lord our God. We chose to obey Him, and obedience to Him has always brought fruitfulness in our life. And God will deliver us from the flames of the furnace. And if not, we will go to our grave obeying Him." Well, this made the king even more furious. "Put more wood on the fire," he says. "Make it 7 times hotter than normal. And bind these men, cast them in." The king kind of walks away. "Oh, can't have that rebellion here, right?" And looks back. "Whoa, what's going on?" He rubs his eyes and grabs his binoculars, and what's going on? He gathers his counselors together and says, "Did we not throw 3 men in?" "Oh yes, king, yes, we did." "No, yeah, duh." "Yes, king, we did. We threw 3 men in." Well, he says, "I see 3 men there walking amidst the fire, and a 4th one who's like the Son of God." He says, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God." Interesting that choice of words there, king. "Come out. Come here." Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego come out of the furnace, and the king looks at them. The counselors are there too. His leaders are there with him. "And your clothing, it's not scorched. It's not toasted at all. Your hair is not singed. You don't even smell like smoke." Like, I've been around a lot of campfires in my life, and no matter how little time you spend in front of a campfire, you always come away smelling like a campfire. I mean, s'mores or no s'mores. And these men, they came out of being in the midst of the fire, and they were not touched by the flames. All their clothing was perfectly fine. Their hair was not singed. They did not smell like smoke. What is this? God had protected them from the flames. God had delivered them from the flames of the furnace. God delivered them. The fire had no power over them. And listen to what King Nebuchadnezzar says then. In verse 28 he says, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him." He later makes a decree saying no one should say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Do you see what happened as a result of these men's obedience to God? They purposed in their heart, I will obey God no matter what. As a result, yes, they were delivered from the flames, yes, but also their life was a living testament of God's power. King Nebuchadnezzar, the men there with him, saw God at work, God's power. Why? Because these men trusted in him that no matter what would happen, they would obey God. They would obey God. God delivered Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah that day, not because they were merely good men, but because they trusted in him, because their trust was in the living God. What about you? Will you purpose in your heart to follow after God? That whenever times get hard and your friends are maybe all doing what you know is wrong, will you stay true to God's word and to what you know is right before him? God always rewards obedience. Obedience is better than sacrifice, and Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah learned that day as they were delivered from the fiery furnace, and they bore testimony to the king of how great God truly is. As you obey God, others will see God in you. What a blessing to obey the Lord.